All right, starting the video over again. So this is Postgres, SQL, databases, Heroku, how the whole ecosystem kind of fits together. Um, cool. So we're somewhere where we can start a project. We'll call this uh, database and SQL practice. So step one, let's make a database. So see for you guys, it's sudo u Postgres, create DB, some database, auth it. All right, so that creates a database. Alert if you get an error when you do that, and it says, here, I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, so now I've stopped the database service. If I try to do that same command again, I get that error. Read the error. It says it could not connect to the database, could not connect to the server. Is the server running locally and accepting connections on that socket? That error is telling you that you are not running a database server. So if that's the case, sudo service PostgreSQL start or restart. If it's not started, restart will still start it too. All right, so then you've got a database. Now this sort of splits in like a couple different directions. So this database doesn't actually have any tables in it right now. One of the things that's sort of neat about Spring Boot is that it will handle all of your table creation and stuff for you. There's actually, you don't need to follow along with this part. There's actually a specific thing in your application properties. This line right there, it says Spring JPA Hibernate DDL Auto. So DDL is data definition language. This is the structure of your database, the tables, the relationships, that kind of stuff. And so by setting DDL Auto to update, it manages the structure of your database for you, which is badass. Like, we like that. That's a handy thing. But if we're not doing that, then we need to handle that ourselves. So we were in.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Sorry. So that means in our SQL files, like we have like Caesar information, we don't have to create the database in those SQL files?
Nope.
Okay.
That create DB command, that makes the database. So like I can do something like sudo u Postgres psql some database. So I'm in the database. If I check how many tables, there aren't any. But I can still go into the database because it exists.
I'm sorry. Did I say database? I meant tables. Sorry, tables.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's you don't need to make the tables. Spring Boot will make the tables for you with that
Okay.
DDL auto update setting.
Okay, thank you.
As a side note, that DDL auto update thing, that's for like demos, and we'll be fine for capstones and stuff. You generally don't want to do that with a production app because the choices that Spring Boot makes to alter your tables and drop stuff and whatever else might not be what you're expecting. So it is usually better to handle that stuff with a specific migration tool, and Spring Boot has one. But for for us, for the next couple weeks, we're fine on auto update. All right, so I would like you to go into your database with pSQL, with something like that. And we're going to, we're just going to make a table directly. So we can do something like create table Some table. Yeah, let's be more specific. Let's call it car. And then I never remember the syntax for DDL statements, so there's no reason you should either. So I look up SQL, create table. Something other than W3 schools. All right, that's what I thought. So we'll do create car, open up a paren, and we just looked up that. Oh, it's a serial is the type for that. So we could do something like ID primary key serial, or no, it'd be ID serial primary key, and like name, do varchar 255. Like pro tip with almost anything in SQL, if it just needs to be, I don't know, not that long, a first name, a last name, a title, something like that, 255 characters, that's a pretty good default. Cool. And then finish that up. Oh, I don't think it likes my last. Yeah, there we go. So get that far. If you do \DT, you should see that car table that we just made.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't you, on the name, instead of doing varchar 255, couldn't you have just done text?
Yeah, those are different things. So,
okay.
Text is, it could be infinitely long, like an article or a comment or something like that. If it's something that's like a label, text is a huge data storage kind of thing. So we don't want to do that for any kind of text-based content. If something is shorter, like constrained in pretty much any way, use varchar instead.
Okay, thank you.
I was following along with you, and whenever you entered something it didn't like,
Yeah.
what did you do to get it to?
Same thing you do in Bash. Just press up.
Okay.
And it'll give you your previous command. All right, so now that we have a table, let's put something in it.
Kyle, I'm still having that same issue. I pressed up, but it's still giving me that same error, syntax error at or near paren, line 4.
Let's take a look.
Alrighty, hang on. Share screen.
You had to delete the last comma.
Is that what it was?
Yep, correct.
Okay, so delete this, and then do the paren semicolon.
Sure.
Bruh. Thank you.
Other questions so far?
Yeah, mine says did not find any relations.
Okay, so that means it didn't create the table.
Oh,
So you want to run a statement that looks kind of like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then you should see this create table thing come back at you. And then when you run your \DT, you should see that show up instead of no relation.
Okay, thank you.
More questions? All right, let's put something in it. If I do insert into car, then it's going to want to know, all right, what fields are you inserting? I don't want to insert ID because it's serial. It gets automatically incremented. I just want the name column. So I can say insert into car, just the name field, values, plural, and then open up a paren. And then for each car that we want to insert, we put the name of the car, close the paren. We can do more than once, or more than one, by just separating them. Each one of them is inside of parens. Close it off with an ending quote and a semicolon. So if we do this right, I should say insert 30 or 03. Then we can prove that worked by doing select all from car.
So I forgot to close the first quotes when I was doing this, so it's obviously not
Sure.
working correctly. How do I abort and then try again?
Sure. Try Control C. If that doesn't work, Control D will take you out of the database entirely, and then you can just press up and get back in.
Okay. Thank you.
Cool. Questions so far? All right, so now let's get out of this database. You can do Control D or \Q, either way. And then let's make a SQL file. We're going to call it cars.sql. So we open up cars.sql. Let's do the same thing. Just insert some more cars. You can tell I don't know cars. So put some more in here. We can do more than one statement too. You could break it up. Now I'm just trying to fuck with people.
Can you show on your command line how you got into that file?
Yeah, I just like made a file and opened it. That's all that's happened there. It's not special. It's not part of Postgres. It's just a file with some words in it.
Wow. Ford Pontiac, huh?
All right. So if we want to run all of those commands against our database, it's the same command that we used to start it, just with the -f flag. So if I do that, cool. I get my confirmation that the insert statements ran. I can go in here, select all from car. There's all the cars. Big idea I'm trying to illustrate there is that whether you're typing the stuff into the terminal or running it off of a file, there's nothing special about it. The file is just keeping you from having to type the commands out, unless you use like an actual text editor instead of the terminal. That's all the SQL files are. It's just saving you some typing. They don't do anything else. In fact, now that that stuff's in there, I don't know. I don't even need that SQL file anymore. It already ran. If I ran it again, all it does is add those same cars a second time. So
Now, if you added your SQL file to Heroku, can you still delete it? Is it like on
well, you
Heroku?
didn't. That's the thing. Like, it's not automatically run by anything. It doesn't serve any other purpose than being handy. And Heroku just takes whatever's part of your repo. So if it's in your repo, Heroku has the file. It doesn't do anything with it, but it has it. If you delete it out of your repo, Heroku doesn't have it anymore.
Okay, I'm a little confused because I did the config var and added that line of code, what was in the Heroku to my terminal, and then I put -f and
Right.
then my SQL file.
Right. You ran those commands on the remote database, but it didn't get the file.
Okay.
It doesn't
Okay.
remember that it came from a file versus you typing them out. There's nothing special about a SQL file.
So I could delete it now and there would be no effect to anything.
Doesn't change anything.
Gotcha. Thank you.
These are exactly the kind of ahas that I was hoping to to foster along.
It seems like the SQL files are just like an easier way to type the stuff if you don't prefer the terminal, which
That's it.
is huge.
It's 100% of the purpose of that. You could also do stuff like do all your table setup in there and like delete any data that's there. So like, for example, I could make a new cars.sql file that runs truncate car. So that will keep the table, but delete everything that's inside of it. And then I can do like an insert into car name values. I can do all this kind of stuff. So now it actually puts the database in more or less the same state every time I run this file. So it'll delete everything that's already there and then insert these things into it. Like, that's fine. This is called a seed file when you do it that way. Sometimes you do it during development because, like, I don't know, your app adds a bunch of users and then it deletes a couple of them. Like, it's handy to have a consistent starting place when you're in development. So you can make a seed file like this and then run that, and it just resets your database and puts all the predictable records in. You might do that as part of a testing process. So like before you run your test, you make sure that these things are in the database. And then you make sure that you can delete something out of the database. All right, well, you want a consistent starting place for every test, so you run this seed file again, and it resets your database. That's pretty normal.
And will the tables always have that ID column automatically created?
No. So the ID column came from that line right there. Now, there's almost no good reason for a table not to have an ID that's a primary key. It should usually be auto-incrementing. So like all of your tables and like 99% of the ones you see out in the wild work like this. But it's not automatic. You have to tell it.
How do you delete one from your table?
Delete a record?
Yeah.
Sure. So, all right, so I made this car SQL file. Right now, if I go in there, I can select all from car. All right, I've got those 9 rows. So now if I truncate the table and insert 2 of them and go back in, now I just have those 2. Curious though, look at those IDs. The auto-incrementing part of a database is actually part of the structure of it. It keeps incrementing. Just because you got rid of the records, that doesn't actually change anything. All right.
Is there a way to reset that
Yes.
from incrementing? Okay.
It's awkward though. If like that's important, it's probably better to just drop the table and recreate it.
Okay.
So yeah, if I run that seed file a few more times, maybe this is running before every single test to just get the database back in a sane starting place.
And that file, would we keep that in like the root of our project, the root directory?
Oops.
Like in the Pokemon API example?
You could. Like, I would probably... Come on. See, the ID keeps going up, but I end up with the same things in there. So, like, what I do for the LMS... Okay, so here's all my seeds. Oops, stop that. So this is TypeScript, but same idea. Is I insert somebody viewing a topic at confidence level 2, and then submitting an exercise with a URL. And so, like, before all the tests and stuff, like this thing, resets the database. Or same thing with, no, those are all the same thing. Those are only seeds I have. So, like, that's the idea of a seed.
If I attach the SQL file and it tells me I inserted 6 rows,
Yeah.
but when I run the data, it has nothing, what would cause that?
I don't know. Screen share.
Brad, screen share.
All right. So you ran the thing. Yeah, that's telling you that you have a car table. That's what \DT is. So select all from car. Semicolon. You can put it right. No, you can put it right there. Yep. Try that again. Just put the semicolon at the end of the line. Nope. Like the whole thing. Select star from car, semicolon. Ta-da!
Alrighty. Sorry.
You're good.
Thank you.
Other questions about any of this so far? Cool. So, let's talk about what we just did. So this is your computer. Your computer has a little fake computer inside of it. That's running your Postgres database. And it's got database over here. So we can either log into that database and do stuff, or we can take some file that we wrote and run it against the database. So there you go. That's it. When we have another server, like Heroku, they have it even more so. They have a little Postgres server that also has a database. This database and this database have nothing to do with each other. They don't even need to like use the same technology. This one can be MySQL, this one can be Postgres. Doesn't matter. But there is no connecting this database to this database. That's not how that works. We can use pSQL, which, as you'll remember, is our command line tool. We can use that to connect to this database instead of this database. That's what we do when we're using the database URL that Heroku gives us. That's fine. We can run this file against that database just like we did with this one. Totally reasonable. In fact, you could think of this as like, I'm testing this out. Does this work? Before I do this on my production database, which has all my customer data and my sales data and my product data and all that kind of stuff, does it do anything weird locally? No, cool. Cool, run it against that one now. So, let's see for ourselves. I want you to head over to Heroku. And make a new app. Could be anything. So make the app and then attach a database to it. So that's over in Overview, Configure Add-ons. We want Heroku Postgres. Order yourself up a free database. And then that's all we need out of this. Over in Settings, and config vars, we got this database URL. We can connect to that with pSQL. Cool. I am logged into a remote database. I just used pSQL to connect to this database instead of this database. Do the same. While we're waiting for folks to catch up, what questions do you have?
Not really a question, but a comment. I had no idea we can do that, like logging into the Heroku's database.
Yeah,
like
man. Note that I'm not impersonating the Postgres user. That's just locally. All that stuff is here. This is like stuff with your computer. This database URL, like, that's your username. That's your password. That's the name of the database. Then all the rest of this EC2, that's an AWS thing. So that's a domain. We're connecting on port 5432. It's a default Postgres port. And we're connecting to that database. All the credentials that you need to access that are there. Which also means that like this is the keys to the castle. Somebody has this, they have your database. There's no further security. It's like, but they weren't logged in as me. That's the username. That's the password. It's all there. So like, that's a precious thing. You got to be careful with it.
Mine.
When you're in Heroku, where did you grab that whole address from? Sorry, it's happened so fast. I was like, wait, where'd you go?
Settings.
Oh, settings. Okay.
Reveal config vars. And it's right there. Blair, what
Thank
did you
you.
have?
It doesn't have like that part after the colon for me with all your numbers.
Your database URL?
Yeah. Or at least if it does, it's not letting me copy any of it.
You can't see all of it in the web. If you single click it on mine, maybe double click. Yeah, like that has all of them if you just copy it.
If you click that little pencil, it'll bring it up, but it's an editor, so you got to be careful.
Yeah.
Like you'll be able to see the full thing.
Yeah, there you go.
And I missed the part. Which tab did you go to add a database?
It's under Overview, Configure Add-ons, and then type Postgres over here, and it'll come up.
Great.
It's also under resources. If you didn't want to do overview, click on resources and then, add-ons.
Oh, yeah, that'll work too.
Okay, so I got it now thanks to what I believe it was Brad who said it, but it's like putting it on a separate line and calling it an execute.
Huh? Screen share.
I was able to find it, but when I pasted it, it did this, and now I can't do anything.
All right, do a Control C. All right, back over to Heroku. Yeah, just click. There you go. Copy, and now paste.
What happens if you enter?
Nothing.
No, that's it's a separate command that he's running. All right, Control C again. Back over to Heroku. Click the pencil. Now make that bigger. Yeah, like that. I wonder, Blair, do you have like maybe Vim bindings turned on or anything like that?
He may have to clear his clipboard. That's what we had to do with Brad yesterday. As he had
No, his
post-
clipboard's
you know,
fine. He has the thing on there, but
I've never done anything with Vim binding, so if it's on, I have no idea.
okay. So it starts farting out around LN, QLN. Back over to Heroku. QLNJK. That's it. Did you use my dot files for anything?
What do you mean?
Okay, all right, go back over to your terminal. This is a weird one. And this is definitely one that was like 8 hours of my life figuring this out, and I went insane. All right, so do nano tilde
Oops.
slash
Which one? This one?
/ dot zishrc. Yep. Cool. Go down. There it is. See that Vim mode stuff? Comment out the third one.
This one?
Yeah. It's a
Oh, it's a hash.
yeah. Okay, so take a look at what it says.
It takes JK and goes into Vim.
Bingo. And so when you tried to paste something that had JK in it, it went into Vim mode. Like I said, this was a day of my life tracking this down. All right, yep, save your modified buffer. Yep. Hit enter. All right, and now we need to run that. So you're going to do source tilde / zisrc.
Source or SRC?
SOURCE. Yeah.
Okay.
And then
Source
tilde / zisrc. Yeah. All right. Now try pasting that. Oh, it's still... Come on, man. Don't make me look dumb in front of my friends. It's still at that JK. It's like it didn't take...
Does he have to kill the terminal to get it to take?
Like, Source should have taken care of it, but... Oh, you know what? Yes, he does. Because that thing is still bound right now. Like, it won't be bound next time the terminal starts, though. Yeah, do that. Good looking out, Parnell. Moment of truth. You'll love to see it. All right, now you're logged into your remote database.
Thank you.
That one is the gnarliest issue I've ever had. I thought I was having a stroke the first time that happened to me.
What is that even used for? I've never used that the entire time.
You probably stole it from me or my setup instructions or something like that. I do it all the time.
Yeah.
I'll show you exactly what I use it for. So when I'm on my terminal, let's say, actually even just that. So I try to keep my hands on home row. So reaching over for the arrow key, that sucks. If I press JJ, see there's a red arrow that started up over here. So it's not there now. It is there now. So that means I went into Vim mode. Now all of my keys work the way they do in Vim. And so if I press K, that takes me up. And I go, oh, I need to go to the beginning of this line. So I do capital B, or sorry, that's to the beginning of that word. If I want to go to the end of the line, it's $sign. If I want to go to the beginning of the line, it's 0. If I want to skip around through stuff, it's lowercase w. And so like there aren't really good built-in ways to navigate through stuff in Unix. And so that Vim mode lets you use all of the Vim commands to move around those commands. Way easier to edit stuff. So I can do stuff like, that except without some database. Well, I can do back and then capital D and it gets rid of it.
It's the reason we can't follow you.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that's what Vim mode is for. And so I have mine bound to JJ and JK. That's why I knew the second it tripped over JK. I'm the only person I know who uses those two things for Vim mode. All right. So our remote database. If we hop in here, hey man, no tables. Yeah, no shit. It doesn't have any connection, anything to do with this database over here. It's just a separate database that Heroku just gave us. So what we could do, and what I'd like you to follow along with, is let's go into that car SQL file. We can do all the structure stuff for this. So I'm going to do a drop table if exists car. Then I'm going to do create table car. And ID serial primary key, name, varchar 255. Your screen should look like mine. So if there is a car table, it gets rid of it. Then it makes one. And then it adds some data to it. So if I run that on my local database, cool, does all that stuff. I can hop into that database, select all from car. It even restarted my sequence because I dropped the table. If I log into my remote database, I don't have anything.
Can we go back to the file? I got a
Sure.
syntax error.
Anybody else need something?
I can't figure out what it says that I'm
All
doing
right.
wrong.
Screen share. Let's take a look. Okay, drop table if exists
Oh,
cars.
semicolons.
Yeah, you're missing semicolons on those other two statements. Also, table name should be singular always.
I messed up the first time we did it with car, so I just switched it to cars so I didn't have to figure out how to delete a table while you were continuing. I guess I could change it now.
Yeah, drop table is the way that you get rid of a table, FYI.
Okay.
Cool. Other questions so far? So if I can run this file locally, which is what I did here, well, could I also do that with my remote connection? Yep. Cool. Now if I log into that remote database, hey, what tables do you have? Well, I have a car table. What's in there? There you go. So like those files are useful for trying something locally and before you run it on your production database. That's all that's happening there. I could have also logged into that remote database, typed out all the create statements, typed out the insert statements. Like all that's fine. Files just let us use actual text editors to write it. Lets us reuse stuff if we need to. And when we do this with Spring Boot handles all of this part for us. We don't need to manage the schema.
Kyle, if we were already in, that database, could we have just done the -f cars.sql, or we'd have to put in the pSQL, Postgres, and all that stuff still? Like, would we have to go out of the database to add the table, or if we're already in the database, we can't just add the table?
Because if you're in the database, that means that you're on Heroku's computer. You can't see your files from Heroku's computer. That'd be messed up.
Okay, so you have to go back to the terminal. Basically, we have to exit out, go back to the terminal, and put the command in. That's why we're doing it. Okay, that makes sense.
Because yeah, when you do this -f with a remote database, it's reading the contents of that file and then like sending it to that database. But yeah, Heroku's file system can't see your computer. That would be that'd be spooky.
Now, let me get this straight. How do you look at, you sent it to Heroku.
Mm-hmm.
Can you now pull that up on Insomnia and view your table?
No, I haven't done any web stuff. All of this has just been database. There's no app running on Heroku, but we can still order a database from them and just use a remote database.
Okay.
Now, that said, if I put this in chat, try it. All of you can log into this database too. You can even do it at the same time. You can't log into a database on my computer because that would be messed up. It's the cloud though, man. It's just somebody else's computer. Questions?
Can we make changes to your database in Heroku?
Yeah.
Even without like special permissions or anything?
That's the thing. That's the username. That's the password, this second part of it. That is the special permissions.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah,
Okay.
this is the deed to the property.
So basically, unless you share that link, nobody can make changes to your database.
Correct. Somebody
Roger
has
that.
this link, they have your database.
And it's only specific to that one database. It's not like any
Bingo.
other app on Heroku.
Doesn't have anything to do with any other app that I have.
How do we log into your database on Heroku?
Same way that I did. P-SQL, paste the link. You're done.
Oh, okay. You just do it from there.
Yeah.
Is this how you work as collaborators in Heroku?
No. The only reason you ever need to log directly into a database on Heroku is to like debug stuff. Or like in y'all's case, I do that when I do reporting, like how many submissions have we had, like all that kind of stuff. I don't have a dashboard for that or anything, so I just log into the database and run queries. But like that's why you would do something like that. 9 times out of 10, like you don't access it directly.
Right,
If you want to add data to it, you literally add data to it, like through your app. You guys submitting stuff, that's making insert statements. Me evaluating stuff, that's making insert statements. Like that's how you normally interact with the database. But if I need to get under the hood and look at something, that's when you log into it. And then in like a production setting, no one should have access to this. It's the keys to the castle, man. So just like a regular employee being able to get into a database and extract all of the data, or somebody gets fired and they hop in here and just drop all the tables real quick. There's no coming back from that. Like it doesn't ask an administrator's permission first or anything. Like you are the administrator. That's what all that is. So there's like a lot of ways you can get around that, but directly accessing the database as the super user, like I'm doing here, like that's spooky. Now what you can do is you can say, Heroku has that secret, but literally nobody can access it directly. Not even us, not even an administrator or something. And so if I want to change that, I can have Heroku like sort of manage all of that for me, and then just keep the actual credentials in the environment so that those credentials, it's not like something somebody types out or copy paste or anything like that. It's actually injected into the environment, and nobody can get into the environment in production. So there's ways to do that securely. All right, did anybody vandalize it?
I did.
Yeah! There you go.
I actually put, real vehicles in.
Chevrolet movie theater. So when we do something with Postgres, when we do something with Spring Boot, like okay, so this is a Spring Boot app. This application properties file, this is looking for the stuff that's in that database URL. But we don't type them out in here. We say pull them out of the environment. When Heroku launches your app, it puts all of these values into the environment, and then that can be read out. So that environment is like here. And your app, which is running over here, it goes, hey, what's the environment variable for Spring data source URL? Why, it's this thing over here. So then that gets read into the app, and that's why the exact same app code can work on your computer, even though you might even be using a completely different database technology. So you can do that there, and then you can use something locally on your personal computer. That's the placeholder in the template. All of this is a template. So then locally, we get that out of a .env file and that cool .env plugin. But this .env file, that's everything needed to make this work on my computer. Heroku doesn't care about this. The only purpose of this is to get these values. Like, this is me injecting them into my environment, so that when I'm running the app over here on its server, this env file, all of that stuff gets read in. So like environment variables, you have tons of them on your computer. Like, how do you think your computer knows when I go cd tilde and it takes me to that directory? How does it know that that's what my home is? Because that's that environment variable, home. What other environment variables do I have? I think it's var dump. Nope. Print env. There it is. There you go. There's all my environment variables. Hey, this one should be familiar. Your path. So all of these are variables that anything on your computer can access. They're part of this computer's environment. Different computers, different environments. Your home directory is completely different than mine, but we can both use tilde. It extracts it out. All right, ask me some questions.
So, excuse me. So, during this exercise, like I tried to connect to the database, and it kept giving me like an error, like, fatal error, password authentication failed. So I was like, what the hell? So like I logged into your database, no problem. So I deleted the add-on for Postgres on Heroku, and I just reordered it. And I tried the same thing again for Postgres, and it worked. So I'm not sure, like, is that, like, how could that have happened where it's having a password error of some kind?
With that connection string?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe you copy and pasted it wrong.
Maybe.
But yeah, all that stuff's computer generated. It's not like there's somebody at Heroku who's like, let's give AMP a database. So the credentials should match up.
I keep trying to go back to my table and I redo the P-SQL Postgres line and then the cars SQL file at the end of it, and it adds them. And then when I run the database again, it still pulls up yours.
Show me.
Okay. So whenever I ran that,
yeah,
it inserted the 6 that I've got over here.
Yeah.
And then if I go to run the table again,
Mm-hmm.
and then it just shows the 3 from
Yeah, you probably also ran it against this one. So try this. Try delete from car where ID equal 3. Yep. All right, so now run that select statement again. Just press up. There you go. Cool. So now we only have those 2 there. So now hop out of this and get onto your remote one. Just press up. No, that was the one that you just did. Get out of that. Just press up until you get that. There you go. So you just ran the thing again. That's fine. Press up and delete. Oop, too far. Delete the -F so you can just log into it instead of running that file. Yeah, there you go. All right, so now do a select all from car. It's got different stuff. It's a different database.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Other questions so far?
I thought you had solved my problem, but my problem is persistent. I can't, all of my image URLs keep showing up null.
That's a Spring Boot problem. That's
pull it
probably
up.
not a SQL problem.
Okay.
We can talk about that in a sec, but unrelated to this.
Okay. Well, that's comforting, actually, because I've rebuilt the stupid thing like 15 times.
Other questions about SQL, databases, servers, remote servers, daemons? The overall goal is to have some app and all of its like data connection code and all of this stuff, and have only the parts that need to be different on the production computer and your coworker's computer and everything else. We want these to be like little slots, holes in the template. And then we can just insert those values. Now it runs on your computer. We insert these values. Cool. Now it runs on Heroku. Because if this is just a couple of like username and password kinds of things, that lowers the likelihood that the app works on my computer but doesn't work on Heroku. The works on my machine thing, environment variables are how we get around that. It's also how you make it so that you don't have to have a database with the same name and the same password and the same username as your production environment. That's weird. So we make these little placeholders here that we can just sort of insert the things that are specific to the computer that it's running on. Hopefully a little bit clearer. All right, cool. I'm calling this lesson. Julie, if you want to hang for a sec, I'll look at your API.